Thank you.
Okay, we've got a quorum. Welcome to the May edition of the Fayetteville Council of Neighborhoods. I guess our call to order here will be the introduction of the neighborhood representatives.
Ethel Simpson from University Heights.
Don Connor, Root School Neighborhood Association.
Aubrey Shepherd, Talmadge Neighborhood Association.
Nancy Allen, Woodland Neighborhood Association.
Dave Flynn with the Huntington POA.
Stan Lancaster with Jefferson Walker.
Okay. We put this off before and we need to get it going. There's a City Plan 2030 and Master Street Plan discussion. I forgot the name of your neighborhood.
The Estates of Salem Hills.
Salem Hills? The Estates of Salem Hills,
The
okay.
Estates of Salem. There's a lot of neighborhoods with Salem in
Yeah, there are several Salems out there.
Don, just for my clarification, which Salem?
Which what?
Which Salem community we talking about?
The Estates at Salem Hills.
Okay, where's that located?
it. Okay, so if you go to the northwest corner of town, by the, where Howard Nickel Road is? Okay, it's Howard Nickel Road
Okay.
goes to the
Yeah,
center.
that used to be, that was one of the several communities that at one time was referred to as Salem. Was
That's
more-
right, the school is not, the old school is right near there, the one that's fallen down.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, and
We still got that way.
we've got Jessie Fulcher here to give us our 2030 plan information. And let you fire up and get started with that, and we want to hear what these guys have got to say.
Well, thanks for the introduction and for letting me come give a brief presentation. I was telling Julie before the meeting that I had something set up from our Planning Commission presentation from a few weeks ago, and we'll be sharing with the City Council a few weeks from now, and realize it's kind of boring. So I cut out a lot of that stuff and just went with the highest points of the documents that we're talking about. And the documents that we're talking about is our city plan document. This has a great deal of information in it, and then just a brief discussion on this on the future land use map, and then on the master street plan map. And I think what I really just wanted to accomplish was to give this slight overview to each of you as neighborhood representatives, so you'll have a little bit more knowledge on how the city uses each of these plans, and then that might create some additional questions beyond what some of the neighbors may want to bring up after the meeting. So what is the city plan document? Kind of open it up just to show you a little bit, but a large portion of this document is actually just data. There's a lot of demographic data, housing data, economic data, available history. There's some historical information on the city of Fayetteville provided in here also. And so it's a great resource document for one, but a larger portion that we use it for from the planning department really is in this framework chapter. And that's a portion that I will be going through on each of our goals that we have adopted for the city, and then some of the objectives and action steps. Also within this document, they support the future land use map and the master street plan. So the color representations that you see on the future land use map are actually described within this document. And then on the master street plan, you see lots of streets with different color designations, and the actual cross sections, how those would be constructed at full build out, are also in this document. So the 6 goals as part of City Plan 2025, and I'm starting with City Plan 2025 because that's what the adopted plan is at this moment, and what we're working on is the City Plan 2030 update. And the reason we're using those far off timelines, 25 and 30, is that this is really a 20-year vision document. We actually update it every 5 years, and so that's what we're working on this year is an update. And so 5 years from now, or 20 years from now, approximately, it will be 2030. The 6 goals that were adopted as part of City Plan 2025, Goal 1 will make appropriate infill and revitalization our highest priorities. Goal 2, we will discourage suburban sprawl. Goal 3, we will make traditional town form the standard. Goal 4, we will grow a livable transportation network. Goal 5, we will assemble an enduring green network. And Goal 6, we will create attainable housing. These 6 goals are remaining in place for City Plan 2030 because we believe that they're really good goals. Honestly, it's how we achieve them that we're working to improve and update and those tasks that will be completed over the next 5 years. The only change here actually is in Goal 6, is we will create opportunities for attainable housing. We've included the opportunities for attainable housing as part of that goal. And just to go through those 6 goals so you have a little better idea of what those are about, that language. So infill and revitalization really can fall into 2 categories mainly. You think of commercial revitalization, infill, and there's also a residential component. And you probably don't recognize this area because it doesn't quite exist this way, but this is 15th Street heading east and west here, and this is South School coming down off Archibald and coming all the way down. And there's actually, it's a modified billing, but this would be Mountain Man Pond, and this would be IGA, Southgate IGA. And so this is what you can see in a commercial area that really is underutilized. If you, most everyone here is familiar with the property, it's mostly parking lot and there's a couple buildings. And that's true for a lot of our older commercial corridors and shopping centers in the city. And there's just a great deal of opportunity for infill and use of those properties. I realize that those properties are already served by water lines, sewer lines. They already have access to public streets, so the investment is low on the end of a developer versus going out to a pasture somewhere on the edge of our city and building the same thing. So that's more commercial infill. On the residential infill, this was actually a site a couple of blocks south from where we're at right now. And on this piece of property was an old house. It was really fallen into disrepair, so it was one of those instances where you couldn't really rehab it. It really just needed to be removed, and an investor or developer went in and purchased it. It was only about an 8,000 square foot lot at the time. The house kind of sat back in the middle and really kind of underutilized piece of property. They came in and tore down that house, actually split it in half and created 2 4,000 square foot lots and put these 2 homes on there. My understanding is they sold very, very quickly and actually at a fairly high dollar price per square foot.
So, when was that? When did they sell?
The houses were built, probably finished up 6 months, 8 months ago. You know, it's fairly new. It's right down off of South College. If you go down,
It's been a year, I think.
yeah, it's been a year. But 2 great little, you know, whether this is your style or not, you know, may be a different question, but, you know, a great utilization of an underutilized piece of property in a residential setting. Discouraged suburban sprawl. Almost everyone's familiar with that term, suburban sprawl. Generally understand what it is. People describe it as leapfrog development. You have subdivision, then you jump over, you know, 15 acres of pasture land, you drop in another subdivision. Usually it's characterized by single use also. But I actually have several slides for this because they're really great slides. It was actually put together by the University of Arkansas Community Design Center. And you start with this 1830, the original plat of the city of Fayetteville, and you see West Avenue on the west side, South Street on the south, Dixon Street on the north, and College on the east. And this was the original plat, 181 years ago. And I'm going to move through the progression that they put together of how the city of Fayetteville has expanded, for better or worse, up to this point, and then also what it may look like in 20 years from now. So 1950s, and I'll show you how they've done this. If I go, back, the original town plat is in pink, and that shows up again here in pink in the middle. And so by 1950s, it began to spread out some, but still a very, tight gridded street network, fairly accessible and walkable city. But what you see in the 1950s is this commercial arm. That's North College right there, and probably doesn't look much different today than it did then. Other than there's more stuff and it goes further north. But that's that pattern you see change from, prior to the automobile becoming such a important or large factor in day-to-day lives. And so this is that change you really begin to see starting in the 1950s. Here's 1980s, and you can again see the pink that was there in the previous slide, and the black is development that occurred over that 30-year period. But for the most part, we're still well within our boundaries. This is crossover here. Here's the old Fulbright Expressway here on the west side, but you don't see a lot going on. We jump to 2011, and this is what we look like right now. I think some of that probably falls under the category of sprawl if you the way it's defined. And so the next slide is what it could look like based on growth patterns that have occurred and the policies that have been in place in the past. And so you begin just to see every corner of what used to be productive agricultural farm properties filled up with various types of development. So our goal is to try to discourage that, if I didn't make that clear. Traditional town form. Traditional town form is actually what you saw in those first couple of slides. Gridded street networks, denser housing. When I say denser housing, I don't necessarily mean apartments on top of each other, on top of single-family homes, but something more dense in which you may find at a unit per acre. What's appropriate really depends on the context of the area that you're in, but something denser than what you find on the very outskirts of the very large lots. Small blocks, but you preserve open space. You have a complete neighborhood. You have a variety of housing. It's just not the same housing type repeated over and over for the same price point, the same income earners. Civic uses and jobs as part of your neighborhood. So there's an opportunity to not have to get in your car to go to a job or to go to the coffee shop or to go to a church or a school. And connected. So your streets are connected. It's not a bunch of dead-end streets where you put all your traffic out onto one intersection, you overload that intersection, and buildings that are oriented towards the street, providing that that link between the built environment and the street environment. Livable transportation network, moving beyond just the vehicle as the only means of transportation, and you've seen that. These are all recent pictures, so including bike lanes in our streets, the expansion of the trail system, the potential for a regional trail system, potential for expanded bus service, a very important part of the overall transportation network, so that you have an opportunity for anyone, whether it be a disabled person or a person interested in exercise, someone that wants to walk, someone that wants to bike. There's an opportunity for each one of those people to get to various parts of the city. We'll assemble an enduring green network. This was actually something we talked a lot about with the public last year when we were working up to our presentations with the Planning Commission and City Council. But what we wanted an enduring green network to be, and really the response we got back was a connected network of natural spaces. So you're trying to maintain wildlife corridors, but you're also trying to provide a place for humans to connect from one place to the next. So maybe you have corridors via a trail or a natural area between one park and another park. So could you ever get from Lake Wilson to Lake Sequoia to Lake Fayetteville? Is that possible? Can you make that connection? So that's the enduring green network that we're trying to create. And we'll create opportunities for attainable housing. And the reason we felt that it was necessary to change that title from we will create, because at this point, the city doesn't build housing. We provide a lot of support for individuals and for organizations that are interested in constructing attainable housing, but the city is not. So we felt it was a better description to say that we're going to create those opportunities. On the top left is a picture from a couple of years ago, and this is what was originally called a granny unit or an in-law unit. We call them accessory dwelling units, and they're a unit that you could provide for an in-law as a rental income to a student or to a young professional to offset the cost of your home, and also provide a lower priced opportunity for someone else to live. So it's mutually beneficial, and that's actually something that the Planning Commission and City Council passed a couple years ago and now are allowed by right with a number of design requirements. Moving beyond that, though, we're looking at pointing out the opportunities beyond just house price. House price and what you pay in rent or mortgage or whatever it may be is only a part of your overall expenses. You have X amount of dollars that you earn, and that's divvied up among all your expenses in life. And two of the big ones that at this point are getting attention but probably need more attention is transportation and utilities. Transportation, when taken into effect, if you've ever heard the drive to qualify phrase, you drive all the way out as far as you can find a less expensive house because the land is less expensive. But when you look at your transportation costs to drive back and forth to your job, you've taken away all that savings in your house and put it in your gas tank and your vehicle maintenance. So there's actually a great website. It's called, I don't think I can even read it. It's Housing and Transportation Affordability Index. And the first one they did, I think, was up in the northern United States, but they've done one for the Northwest Arkansas area. And what it shows you is when you just look at housing as your expenditure, what you can afford and what you can't afford, or where there's attainable housing, where there's not. But when you factor in transportation and all of those factors, the landscape changes completely. And you can see that in this diagram here. This is of Minnesota, but it shows you, everything in yellow is attainable. I can afford any of those houses. Well, if you factor in transportation, that envelope shrinks. You move out here and you've taken away all that cost savings in your home, put it into your gas tank. And then on the utility side, energy efficiency is really starting to pick up. The city, there's a community revolving loan fund, I think, that was funded at $250,000 that the city is working on. But that money at this point is just going to nonprofit organizations to be able to provide energy retrofits to their buildings. What that will do is allow them to reduce their monthly utility costs, and that savings they'll be able to use to repay those loans. And then once that loan is repaid, the savings will just go into their pocket at that point. What we'd like to see that is expanded to, obviously, to the residential sector, to the people that can use that money more, and that's a lot of what the community development block grant money goes into those programs to help low-income families with improvements to their home or energy efficiency improvements. The action steps and benchmarks, I didn't put an image of that in there, but those 6 goals are what we're working towards from a staff perspective, and a lot of the decision making that we have, and a lot of the projects and time that we put forward every year. So we'll have a benchmark section over the next 3 years. We'll be trying to create new ordinances, new programs, through ourselves, through planning, through the CDBG department, through sustainability, through transportation, all of those departments working together to accomplish tasks to help us reach some of these goals. And you can see, when you're talking about suburban sprawl and infill, land use, our planning efforts, our ordinances, and we have a large hand in that. But when you get into the community revolving loan fund, that's not involved in planning. That really falls into John Coleman and his group and some other individuals, and not even with the city. And so there's a variety of individuals working on trying to accomplish these. But that really is a large portion of what we're trying to do. The future land use map really follows that. We're trying to create, what are we trying to do over the next 20 years? We have our goals and what we're trying to do. So let's make sure that we're matching up our future land use map with that. And what would make sense, obviously, and first I'll point out this green here is a rural area. So over the next 20 years, at least at a 5-year sequence, over the next 5 years, we don't think this will change much. You never know what will happen 15 or 20 years from now, but as a 20-year outlook, we would expect these areas on the outside of our city to remain in a rural state. And that's the expectation, and that's what we're planning for. Most of these are actually in the county right now, and we do have some jurisdiction over that to a degree. And so if we want to discourage suburban sprawl, that would make sense to label this as a rural area and not a commercial area or a city neighborhood area. And so we're trying to match up our expectations in land use over time with our goals for discouraging sprawl, encouraging infill, and other types of goals and objectives. Now, why this map might be important to your neighbor or neighborhood is it's one of the things we really look to for rezoning proposals. A landowner, whether it be a developer, someone that has a family farm and they're just trying to get the best value for it, will come through our department, through the Planning Commission, City Council for rezoning purposes. And this is one of the documents that you use. This is our expectation for land use. So if Mrs. Smith comes in with a 20-acre tract out here and says, I think this would be a great retail spot, I think I should rezone it commercial, it's going to be a challenge considering that we would like it to be rural in the long term and discourage suburban sprawl as much as possible. Of course, if Mrs. Smith comes in with, an old piece of property here on College, the opportunities for commercial development or multifamily development would be obviously different. So this map really sets out how we want the city to develop over time. And that's really based on, I'm going to flip down one page, which referred to as the transect. And the transect, if you can imagine moving from left to right, this being the most rural or natural areas. And so it's a progression of intensity and density. So I always use a good example of coming in from Goshen, or if you're coming in from Weddington, you feel the same way. Or coming in from Winslow, from the south. We don't really have it in the north anymore since we abut Springdale. But in the other three directions, you feel this transition in land use and density and intensity. It's a very rural, natural area, and it progresses very slowly for the most part into homesteads on large acres, and then you enter into more of the suburban areas, and then you start to enter closer to the center of the city, and then you might find yourself closer to the downtown area. I was thinking today of some examples of what this might remind you of. This not being in the city of Fayetteville, this is more like a Manhattan sector. It just doesn't really exist here. We really stop here. The Underwood building is probably one of the largest buildings that we have in the city, scale-wise, the Lindsay building. And so that's that great intensity that you feel when you're near those. What this doesn't do is point out whether it's multifamily, single-family, commercial, office, industrial. It's not trying to tell you what the land use should be, but what the form of your developments should be. I mean, obviously, as you enter into town, you feel that this is more residential, more rural, and you're correct in that. It's in these areas as you transition. What is this? Apartments? Is this apartments? Is this office? Is this a fourplex? Is it row houses? It could be any of those things, and that's where your lines, begin to blur a little bit. And you really have to look at your city as it exists. You really need to go out to that street, to that neighborhood, and determine what is appropriate in this area. What's the context of this particular neighborhood? And so again, coming in from the rural area to your residential neighborhoods, and we expect those residential neighborhoods. I don't expect the top of Mount Sequoia or the little neighborhoods off of Lewis and Maxwell and Lewis, or Fieldstone neighborhood. I don't expect any of these to turn commercial or multifamily anytime in the near future. They're going to stay residential in the near future. So I think the map represents both a present and future condition for these. It's the purple and blues where you'll, especially the blues, I'm in colleges and South School, Martin Luther King are ripe for redevelopment. The buildings on those streets are 20, 30, 40, 50 years old and are nearing the end of their lifespan. And that's where you'll see those opportunities for infill and revitalization. And the last map is a master street plan map. The master street plan, similar to the future land use map, is color coded. Each of the streets, whether they be blue or red, blue and red are arterials, and so are the greens. You have the collectors in yellow, and those are the main ones. When you get into your gray streets, which we call local or residential, they're really faded to the back. That's not the ones we're concerned with so much as we are with the larger streets. Most importantly is we have the master street plan to obtain right-of-way. So when Mrs. Smith comes in with her subdivision out on Mission, and she fronts along Mission there, she'll dedicate right-of-way for future improvements to Mission. So at the point where Mission needs to be improved, we'll have obtained right-of-way, hopefully along each portion of Mission, but that won't pass that cost along to us in the future, where the city will have to expend funds to purchase additional right-of-way. And that's what you've seen on crossover, and a great deal of funds goes to purchasing right-of-way.
Could you point out the estates at Salem Hills up there, since he's going to be...
Yeah, right here. And I'll pull up a different map that I can zoom into.
Okay.
But that's it, and you'll be able to see their streets and everything in here. So one of the main objectives of the master street plan is to identify where our major streets are going to go, and then obtain right-of-way as development comes through. And that's a requirement of our development code, whether it be a new subdivision or a new shopping center. There's a right-of-way dedication part of the ordinance. Now, each of these streets has different cross sections, and I didn't include all of them. because there is a number of them, but the collector street, the yellows, could be a 2-lane with bike lanes. Again, trying to get our transportation modes beyond just a vehicle. We have sidewalks. An arterial street are almost always shown as 4-lane, although many of them don't exist that way at this point, with the grass median. This is an actual urban cross section, so you have on-street parking. You take out this parking and switch it to bike lanes. That's what the section of crossover will be built as from Mission to Joyce. It'll be a 4-lane with a grass median, 20 feet, and bike lanes on either side. And then there will actually be green space and sidewalks provided there. The arterials really are the major traffic movers. They usually travel a really long distance and go from a significant point to a significant point, from the mall to downtown.
What color are those?
Those are the reds and the blues. So, Mission coming in, North Street heading out, South School coming in, North College heading out. There's Rupel Road. Some of the homeowners are here. It's actually an incomplete street network at this point. There's some gaps up in this area that are in the county. Back up to that section of Van Ash that was completed a few years ago, and this section through the land that we just acquired from Johnson is an unbuilt section also.
And of course, what we used to call the bypass.
The Fulbright section here?
Yeah.
Yeah, the section of Fulbright.
Which isn't the bypass anymore, it's right down the middle.
It's right down the middle, exactly, and there's, the plans for the flyover are being designed.
When's that happening?
It's in design phase right now, and so I think through next year there'll be design, acquiring right-of-way, so I think construction will start probably in a year to 2. So it's in the near future.
Okay.
It's in the near future. There's a number of, street projects. This section of Rupel Road, which is incomplete, stops here at Persimmon and Owl Creek Elementary. That section of Rupel is funded and will be constructed. This section of Van Ash will be constructed and is programmed in the program. Mount Comfort, which is here, just finished. Weddington project has been finished. The Zion Road project, at least half of it's been finished. And then the crossover, they're doing utility relocation right now. So that one's pretty much underway. So that's really all I had to share. I just wanted to, again, give a big overview of how each of these documents are used and their function. And hopefully that will provide you with some additional information, as development picks up again. When we did this in 2005, 2006, it was in the height of the development boom. So there was a lot of interest. We had almost 800 people participate in that update. Now it's all quiet. It's part of the reason probably why it's challenging to get a lot of people in the audience at these meetings.
Yeah,
because there's not a lot going on.
We aren't having the fights.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a good and bad thing.
Jesse, I missed what you said about crossover.
Mhm.
And what's the status of that?
They're doing utility relocation right now, and so that one's rolling.
They should start digging that thing.
I think there was one property where we were doing some right-of-way acquisition that was left on. So it's acquired, utilities are being relocated, it's moving.
From where to where,
From Mission to Joyce. That's all the funding that was available.
That's where the problem
And it's a
is.
cost share, 50-50 between the
was
city
in
and state.
our tax deal.
Yeah, between the bond program that was
Right.
approved back in 05, 06.
Yeah.
What about Garland?
Garland is, we have not acquired right-of-way. I was actually talking to a property owner yesterday. That's just been a challenge going back and forth on these state highway projects
Yeah.
because our standards vary quite differently between the state and the city. So it's been a back and forth.
But it's worked with them at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, we've come to, I think the final design, and we haven't done the right-of-way acquisition, or the state hasn't. I was actually speaking with one of their, the guy that does right-of-way acquisition and property value appraisals. And so it's nearing too. It'll start moving forward soon.
Did we get our way on the design?
Yeah, we're, to my knowledge, and I haven't looked at the final plan, but there's still going to be a median, still going to be sidewalks and bike lanes. That was a tough one where you got a lot of development on both sides where we didn't acquire right-of-way as that developed because it developed so long ago. We had to fit a street into that environment. But yeah, I think we got everything as close as we want.
Other questions for Jesse?
Mine, Jesse, is about the watershed protection that I think there could be a lot of evidence right now that we haven't gone nearly far enough in trying to keep the water where it falls in our city instead of paving and sending it downhill. And a lot of these plans, I know, include piping water underground where there are now currently grassy swales. And for instance, the Garland project, it has this wonderful grassy swale on either part, on either side. And even with that, you've had water almost into houses along there on some of these worst days and nights. I've driven to it a few times during these. Can't get everywhere. I wish I could see it all on the air. But we still haven't gotten to the point in using low-impact development that we really try to keep the water where it falls. I mean, some of the infill development in any paving we do will increase the speed of runoff into the lower areas, the prairie areas that surround the hills here. So I hope you're accumulating a lot of information from various city departments that, like the transportation department, had people out blocking streets. And flash floods go away so fast, there's no evidence. It's really easy to see. And I noticed some of my people coming through my neighborhood would crash through those little tape barriers. As soon as the water got down, it didn't look scary to them. They went on through. And I saw the police trying to stop big trucks on 15th Street because they just roar through those things because they know they can make it even though it's 3 feet deep. Because cars wash right over to the side.
Yeah.
So I wish you had another year to take all that into account as you designate what realistically would happen if somebody builds here. What'll it do downstream?
Well, this plan, from what I understand, is fairly liquid in the fact that it's not set in stone. That this is what happens. This is just a plan.
Yeah, and you know, it does a lot. It does a lot of great things. It doesn't capture everything. I know there were some comments about food production. It didn't make it into the plan that we heard earlier in the last year in the process. LID was brought up, and it's not like we're ignoring any of those things. And I think actually John Coleman's group and Christina and them are working on some food production bits separately.
Right.
You know, the stream side ordinance that I worked on was separate, and it just kind of came out.
Hillside ordinance.
Hillside ordinance, you know, separate. The LID manual that's going to be funded through the Home Depot grant, you know, separate issues. So we can't lose sight of any of those things, and they don't make it all in this document. This doesn't hold every important thing we need to work on.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that when people are looking to purchase land for development, we've had this over the years. I've lived in Fayetteville way back. They assume they can do certain things, and each time the city institutes some progressive regulations to try to mitigate problems, it comes up against a guy who's bought the land thinking he could do a certain kind of thing that's very intrusive, and he wants to be grandfathered in to do that regardless of new knowledge we have or the new rules that the city's made. So, thank you.
Nancy?
Yes, Jesse, when development, when the economy kind of bounces back and things get a little better, I was wondering in terms of the affordable housing, are there any things that are set by the city that are incentives for developers to build these homes?
Yes, not in place yet. Two things that we added to the plan, and let me actually pull those up. Two new ones we added, and actually Commissioner Ernest asked that we move them to short term to determine the feasibility of a local housing trust fund and land bank. So that's two new ideas that we'll be looking at. You know, transfer of development rights program is still there. We scaled back our short-term goal on that because it was reaffirmed again by our city attorney that does take state enabling legislation, and that is Mrs. Smith's 20 acres out on Mission that she can build houses on, she sells that development right to someone in the city. And that person in the city takes those 20 units she could have built and applies them on their property. And through that program, you can create incentives, say, if you're going to do that, 10% of that has to be this. So that's one mechanism. There's the an educational component on utilities, on energy efficiency programs. We met with a group of developers and architects and people involved in attainable housing programs, and it actually is amazing that selling energy efficiency is challenging. People, they see the price because you got to put that price on the front end of the house, and they're like, I don't want it. I can get the house
Costs a
down the
lot more.
street. Yeah. But they can't quite see that long-term benefit to it. And so there's an educational component to that, and then also again, I think if that community revolving loan fund can be successful in this way, and it can.
But that's also the developer's job, is to keep up with what's available on tax credits and on incentives and stuff like that. If they want to, hopefully develop in a more energy efficient method, they should be the ones out pursuing that instead of the city having to pursue it. That's
to some
their
degree.
developers. That's what their job is.
They're going to meet market demand.
And so that's part of their responsibility as developers, but that doesn't always get addressed in this form. So
Exactly right.
Well, I think what you've got's good. I don't want to see it be set aside. Here's the affordable housing. It seems like the most effective way to be commingled all throughout the community.
Yeah, and that's I think that was still a struggle because that's other than you have the small scale, you have something like Habitat, and they can only do 1-2 units at a time, and so you do get those spread out to some degree. They tend to occur in the same sectors of the city, but there's such small scale quantity, you can't really make a big dent in the population you're trying to serve. And on the other hand, you get someone, I think it was Habitat again, was going to do that larger development. You're going to get 30-40 units, but then you put them all together, and so then you don't get them spread
It's a
throughout
tough
the entire.
problem.
Yeah, it's a challenging problem. It's not as bad as it could be, luckily, yet here. So hopefully we'll, not wait like cities have done in the past, where you're short 60,000 units and you're going to be climbing uphill forever. Hopefully we've realized that it's going to become worse and worse and worse if we don't implement the right programs now. So.
One other thing related to what you're talking about, the storms that came through, an additional thing besides flooding we didn't mention. I happened to notice today, and it reminded me of this, that I saw a place under construction, and some of the material had just been put up, and it had blown off, and they were starting to replace it. You saw this pile of debris that came off there. And looking at it, I wonder if our building codes require enough strength to even be safe in a moderate storm. I mean, we got 100-year-old,
Yes.
150-year-old houses that.
I know about that one, and yes, our building codes, when they have to build something new, when they have to remodel, they have to come up to the new standards, and the new standards are doing things like having tornado clips on the roofs to keep them on, and bonding the foundations to the walls, things like that. So yeah, there's. In the national code, building codes, there's a lot of that addressed, and anything anybody does on remodeling, they've still got to go through the city, get it approved, and have to bring it up to standard. So, yeah, I don't, I don't see where that's a real issue. When they're building something currently, a lot of times things are open and can be blown off because they hadn't got everything
Right.
put up. So,
But it looks like pretty lightweight material.
Has anybody got anything else for Jessie?
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's very-
I appreciate
And we do appreciate it, and It's always nice to be brought back up to speed on what happens with that. You know, a lot of us were really involved in the 2025 plan and hadn't been as involved in the 2030 plan as we should, but
It's good and bad,
you know,
both ways.
it's like everything else. There's so many hours in the day to do this. But thank you very much for coming and thank you for your presentation. Okay, we need to get going on these folks from the estates at Salem Hills.
Thank you so much.
And
I'll keep this brief. For one thing, I thought the meeting ended at 7, and I'm meeting my wife at 7:30.
we're gonna let it go on. We got a few things to deal with, so do your stuff.
Okay. I don't know if JP may be available to you before.
Yeah.
Do you want the map left?
Actually, I do want the map left. That'd be great.
Okay.
The other reason I can be brief, I hope, is that we like this map.
This is the updated map. I'll just throw this in, the 45 here, which you see on this map. This is our master street plan, and we numbered, someone numbered, thank goodness someone was keeping track of this. Each change, whether it be a new street or a designation change or significant relocation of a street. And so we have a spreadsheet that corresponds to every one of these numbers. And the last number, 45, is Howard Nickel Rupel Road. And this, the master street plan, all these documents were at Planning Commission, who reviews this first over April and May, I think.
I'd be happy to explain it.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's the third meeting I've come to. I'd like to,
Yeah, well, I
Go for it.
can't say something.
This change number 45 is the culmination of about 4 years' worth of effort by our neighborhood. That used to be blue, okay, and the street map that I handed out to you, it was blue, which means it was a 4-lane, 4 or 5-lane, if you count the median strip, road right through the middle of our neighborhood. This was the only neighborhood in town that was established that would face onto, it would front onto a principal arterial parkway. The only other principal arterial parkways in town are like crossover, where certainly the new neighborhoods all back onto it.
Right.
Back in '03, this neighborhood was created facing onto it, which really was not a great idea. And I think at the time there were some qualms on the part of the planning staff. They recommended that it go through, but there were clearly some qualms that were presented at the time, having to do with a number of curb cuts and so on and so forth. It's really not an appropriate neighborhood to put around a major arterial parkway. So, to cut to the chase, so we presented this over dozens of meetings over the last 4 years. Nancy was at a number of them, and usually we got told, well, why don't you come back when the master street plan is up for review, for renewal. So we did, and the first step of that was at the Planning Commission. We went to a number of meetings with the Planning Commission this spring, and our neighborhood turned out, as they always do, in large numbers. We're a very cohesive neighborhood. We have 23 members in our Property Owners Association. We look out for one another. We have block parties. We get together for 4th of July and so on and so forth a couple times a year. So we all turned out, because this would have divided the neighborhood in two, would have made it impossible for kids to be playing in their front yards like they are now. You'd end up in a situation like you do have on Crossover, where we just had this press release from the city about announcing stepped-up enforcement to reduce crashes and injuries because of vehicle accidents on Crossover. Same kind of road. You don't want to put that through in the middle of a neighborhood like this. Just to give you an idea of what our neighborhood looks like, I didn't bring extra copies, but this is an overhead, okay? Why don't you just pass that around? This is my front yard, and the two lines show where the pavement and the sidewalk would be moved to in the event of the original plan. So the Planning Commission, most of them actually, at our invitation, very graciously came out to our neighborhood. We had them in site visits of one at a time, so it wouldn't trigger the open meeting law. And they met with us, and they saw firsthand how this would destroy the neighborhood. And we were very much appreciative that the majority view of the Planning Commission acceded to our request, honored our request to change that from a blue line, which was a principal arterial parkway, to a yellow line. I tried to make it easy. I said, yellow's mellow. I'm a guy from the 60s. So that's a 2-lane collector. And so we're very pleased with that. Now, we do recognize that the city does have legitimate issues with trying to get traffic up and around that part of town. What we did was we pointed out that the city's principles that underlie much of the planning documents is that it's better to have a grid of 2-lane roads than having a 4-lane road. And we actually do have a pretty good grid of 2-lane roads out there. Actually, maybe can I use this to
Yep.
move this around? Let's see. I don't know if let's see. Oops. How do I do this? There we go. Okay. So what you have here right now, this is what's mostly used for the north-south, Salem, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that part of town. That's mostly what's used for the north-south. And under the new proposed plan, it is proposed to push this further south of Mount Comfort. Okay, so you have this one going up there now. That's what's being used now for the north-south. This one, our street. Eventually, this probably the proposal is to cut this through, so you'd still have a north-south here, but and also going across that creek there. So you'd have 2 north-souths that are 2 lanes, just a block apart from one another. To make this a 4-lane is overkill. And plus, you've also got in the new master street plan.
And you don't want to make that a 4-lane, because Salem a 4-lane, because you got schools on it.
Right. So you've got a couple of 2 lanes here. This is also proposed, as you can see, to come through here as a collector. It's not going to go all the way up. It's just going to go up to West Salem. But West Salem is proposed to cut over that way, and Dean Solomon is proposed to become a 4-lane. That's a minor arterial parkway. So you've got a lot of connectivity here as on this map without destroying our neighborhood. So anyway, I didn't want to go on for too long because actually we're happy with this. We want to let sleeping dogs lie. But we just, we started coming in a few months ago because we thought that maybe we'd want to solicit your support for making this change, but
You got it done.
we got it done for now. Now that's not the final. It's going to go to the street committee starting next Tuesday, and it's going to go to city council after that. And Jessie will tell them why this was a lousy idea, but but hopefully. So I just wanted to basically just kind of alert you to. We may come back to ask you for
Now, you're
support.
right across the street from the city limits, right?
We are. The city limits are. There's got these 2 checkerboard
Yeah.
parcels that were annexed by the city. This is my house right here, just
Okay.
right across the street from it. But yeah, this is in the city, and this is in the city. This is in the planning zone,
Right.
which is why it came through the planning commission when the
So
neighborhood was first.
when are you anticipating being annexed to the city?
The city has no plans to annex us. That's what they keep saying. So they tell us we shouldn't worry about it. But you
Well,
see, we
but-
have the arterial parkway coming right up to the edge of our subdivision, so that's why we're worried about it. And when they start developing those 2 dominoes that aren't attached to anything, I suspect they will have to develop 4-lane roads.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're gonna have 4 lanes dumping into our subdivision.
Right. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So although we
It
hear
could-
don't
couldn't-
worry, you
couldn't-
can't help
yeah.
but worry.
yeah. Anyway, we just wanted. We're very happy with
Have
this.
you guys petitioned to be annexed?
No,
Do you want to be annexed?
I would say,
I don't know.
I don't know that we get any benefits from it.
Would the fire and police protection be better?
We were told that they weren't planning to give us sewer, water, sewer or fire or anything.
Our fire
Yeah.
comes from
You just get to
from
pay
Wheeler.
taxes.
Fire comes
So-
from Wheeler.
That's
I mean, we're in the school district, so we're getting taxes.
We'd be required to provide fire, police, and solid.
that's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah. You'd be part of it.
We probably respond, fire department probably responds out there already,
Yeah.
in case of emergency.
Just out of the community deal they have with the adjoining fire departments.
We're part of the
Since-
Wheeler Fire Department.
Since most of them are volunteer fire departments.
Mhm.
and they can actually get there from Fayetteville. So
Is there any questions on
I think you kind of answered them yourself, and I'm just pleased that you guys were able to go through all the hoops the city will put you through to get those changes made.
Well, we're not
And
done yet, but
it is a hard process, but you know, you guys need to keep up with the council of neighborhoods here, and there are ways that we can help you smooth your way. You know,
well, that's great. We really appreciate it.
And-
I know you guys represent neighborhoods, and we've got a pretty good solid neighborhood there.
And that's why I was kind of hoping you guys would get in Fayetteville, then you can be an official part. So.
Yeah, no, it's,
Be honorary members, maybe.
Yes.
We aren't going to stop you from coming, believe me.
Okay, thank you.
Please come.
I've enjoyed it.
Please come, because, you know, we do occasionally get something done worthwhile, so. Yeah.
Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
and thank you for your presentation and your perseverance. It's always nice to see that people are happy with what they got from the city.
Thank you. We just like you.
I'm proud that you did that.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
while we have a quorum in the room,
yes, let's get our
I want to
vote.
make a motion that we vote to change our quorum from 6 to 3.
4.
Okay, 6 to 4.
I'll second.
Okay, got a second? Okay, he ran out of the room. So,
You need her to vote?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to turn this off.
That's okay.
For you guys.
I know you gotta do your stuff again.
The battery's dying or
You're
what?
forcing us to a vote.
Ah, there it goes.
I've got her eating and running.
We only need to discuss this for a moment.
Okay, to approve, the, change to 4 people qualifies as a forum, 4 members of neighborhood associations, aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay,
Good idea.
I took care of that.
It's real helpful if they're, from other boards that I'm on, I noticed that people will email, you're gonna make it tonight, you're gonna make it tomorrow night, if they can do that so that we can know that we're gonna have the quorum.
But-
Because it's real annoying to get yourself together, come, whatever it is you're supposed to do, and there's not enough.
We are still going to strive to increase our membership and our attendance of members. So,
Let's remind the public.
once
if they-
again, call all of your neighborhood representatives you know, get them here. Ask them, please show up, even if they don't have issues, because, you know, we've got a lot of stuff going on ourselves.
If we may ask, Mr. Chairman, the neighborhood coordinator whether, what the number of neighborhoods that have in the past been registered, actually currently registered in whatever number of years you're saying, and what the potential might be for how many possible neighborhoods could there be. Some of them have been in the past maybe just a couple blocks, a small street. Some of them are several square miles maybe.
Actually, the size requirements or the percentage of
It's in our
households
bylaws.
are in the bylaws. It's
Yeah.
written in the bylaws.
Yeah, there's a certain number.
So it can be a pretty small area. We've had as many as 44 registered. Currently, I think we have 8 with current registrations.
Because some of them haven't turned in their little form. So we gotta get them going back, make calls.
Potentially, this room could be packed
Yes,
Could be.
legitimate
And it should be.
neighborhood representatives.
it
The
should be.
current neighborhoods that are registered, I think we figured out it actually only represents maybe 2% of the population.
Mhm.
Oh my, that's really sad.
It is. When we had 44 neighborhoods registered, it still was only about 15%
Yeah.
of the
Well,
population.
we were getting some things done though,
Yep.
and word was spreading through neighborhoods, so just gotta let people know that even though there's not a huge issue right now, that there are other things, positive ways in which they can contribute, they don't have to all be negative.
And this group can get involved in things other than, just development. And
Right.
that seems to be what a lot of neighborhoods focus on. I mean, there are a lot of other things that you can do and get involved with that don't have any.
We have other things we're getting ready to talk about that aren't development.
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I didn't know y'all were gonna vote on the forum tonight, but if you'd like, I'd be happy, I know Kit Williams had come in just to make sure, and said you're, loose enough functioning that you could vote for a quorum.
Mhm.
Is that right? Did you
Right.
get that? Okay.
Yes.
You made it 4, is that
Right.
right? Now typically, that also goes with the vote it takes to pass anything.
Right,
Y'all do realize that, right?
right.
So, however many people you get, until you change it later, 4 people can rule,
Right.
whatever you wanna do. Okay, y'all may later go, oh my,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say that right now. So when that comes, I'd be happy or Julie to get a legal opinion or whatever. I'm sure y'all don't wanna go change here and there, but a lot of times what we have seen that when you change something for one purpose, when there has been discussion of the other things, the voting issue, the resolutions, the things that come up later, you may go, wow, these things are just popping out.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
do
That's good
consider that you
information to
have
know.
done that. Okay.
Thank you for telling us.
Yeah,
And
does
if
that,
there's anything that comes up, I'd be happy to ask City Attorney Kit Williams or any of you actually.
One other
probably
thing,
could.
generally, we're a very cohesive group,
Yeah.
and we
Oh,
very
yeah.
rarely have nays
Yeah.
on any of
Yeah.
our.
Yeah, and you never want to get to a point where you want to change the rules because of an issue though.
Right.
Right.
That's.
Didn't
gets
really
a little-
want to do that on this one, but it's kind of
Yeah.
necessary right
But-
now.
Yeah,
if I may, Mr. Chairman, ask you, Mrs. Smith, did you say that the required number of votes to pass something would be the same as the quorum?
Yes.
In the
Yes.
future? So that has not been the case on telecom board, where 3-1 has ruled several issues in the last 2 or 3 years.
then we need to probably check the validity of the votes. I know in the past years, when
That's-
Kit has looked at that and we questioned the forum, we were questioning the 4 or 5, but you have to have the same number. If you'd like to with this committee, because it is different from others, there might be nuances that are different, I would be happy to ask Kit about that.
Yeah, might not be a bad idea, just to,
Would y'all like me to do that?
yeah, sure, for safety's
Okay,
sake.
let's just see what the legal authority is, so you know, and he might say, oh, but we'll let him know this too. Just so you're
Right.
upfront, and you know, because you wanna have something, when you vote on a procedural change, know where it's coming, because the best thing out of fairness and equality is to stay the same and treat everything the same, and so rule changes, it's good to know upfront. I'd be happy, I'll go ahead and do that and ask Mr. Williams to do that, and I'll get it to Julie.
Thank you.
And thank goodness we don't have the problems the telecom board has.
Speak to the chair.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Okay, now, I do have an announcement to make. There were a couple of us in the Council of Neighborhoods that took it upon ourselves in the wake of Joplin's tornado disaster to arrange that the Council of Neighborhoods is heading up a drive to load up a 18-wheeler that we've acquired from Walmart. They've donated the use of a 18-wheeler and its driver and et cetera to bring a load of non-perishable goods to Joplin as a relief effort in conjunction with the city and this sort of thing. And we need to do a couple of things on here. We need some boxes, because a lot of this stuff is coming in bags. You know, the cases of water, they're easy to stack in the 18-wheeler, but we need some boxes. So I'm putting out a cry for boxes. 24 by 36, something like that. Yes.
Liquor stores.
We we've been there today.
Okay, so I mean for the boxes.
Yeah, we, not just for the liquor, but we actually went for boxes. JP, who's not here tonight because of some family issues, she got in touch with the folks at Habitat for Humanity, who she's working with, and they're gonna take care of our clothing that's donated, and some of the lightweight stuff like that. They're bringing a truck up Monday themselves, their smaller collection truck. And we are currently collecting at all of the fire stations, non-perishables, water, toothbrushes, toothpaste, stuff like anything you can think of, diapers, cat food, you name it, we're collecting it. As long as it's non-perishable, and we're gonna have several of us get together. We've been calling each other and getting help loading up. The fire department has been helping us. They've been helping us unload the trailer. I've got a little trailer that we've been bringing from fire department to fire department. We've made a few loads, full loads of stuff. The response is really good. We need to get the info out that we're collecting. We need to just make sure everybody's on the same page that we are collecting, so everybody will know to keep bringing stuff to the fire department. We plan on shutting it off on Tuesday and being able to send the truck up Wednesday.
Now, is this different than, I got a thing from the city saying that they were collecting stuff?
That's us.
Okay.
That's us.
That's gonna be kind of confusing, I think. Maybe I don't get it.
Well, the city's doing the collecting part at the fire stations, and then
Doing the work.
some of your council member or your chair has kind of, him and some of the others have taken it on themselves to
We've got the
transport it,
logistics.
pull it from, got the logistics
Okay.
of getting it. So it's a partnership.
So still take those goods
To
to
the fire
station?
Absolutely.
Coordinate to go to Joplin. That's where it's going.
Yep.
That sounds wonderful, Don.
We,
If they have a choice, Mr. Chairman, of fire stations, take it directly to the one on MLK, just off MLK. No, that's not the best place. That's where it's all going.
no, take it to all the fire stations.
Well, any,
Everyone
I'm just
in charge
saying,
of doing the
And,
transport.
and we'll get it to
Okay.
the truck, because they don't have the people over there to handle all of it at once, so.
A lot of the smaller stations are 3-person, and when they're on a call, and there are a lot of safety things going on, there aren't people there.
Yeah,
Don has the key to the
To the trailer.
Yeah, that's what FCON's taking on is, the fire department, Tracy, Bradshaw, who does dispatch of the fire department, we've got it all set up to where when one of the stations says, hey, we're too full, and then she calls Don directly, and we just started that this morning, and then he'll come and then take it to a centralized point.
Not a good problem to have, to be overloading.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we want to,
and they have been overloading.
yeah.
It's really nice.
And a lot of it is to get it out of the station, because they still are functioning safety units, and they can't, they need to get their equipment, they can't
Yes.
walk around green beans. So they, they have it in certain areas, but I mean, like Fire Station 1, within a day, their vestibule is completely filled up.
Yeah.
So it's a credit to the people bringing it out. And I know FCON's gonna be working from now up until donations at all the fire stations, community-wide. You can drop it off until Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
And Wednesday, we're gonna do our last collect and
Rick moves
get
out.
this thing going. And, I'd like to thank Tracy Bradshaw. She's been really good about, getting everything coordinated with the fire departments. I do need some more volunteers to help with the picking up. So, call me afterwards and let me know,
With the picking up.
picking up from the fire stations to where we're bringing it over to the trailer that's going over the road. to bring it there. We're working on the last of the logistics on making sure it gets to the right place in Joplin where they've got a good clearinghouse to make sure that the goods are distributed properly, and we're gonna handle that just fine. I just talked to Steve Clark at the Chamber of Commerce, and we're also gonna be picking up whatever they've got. And they've had some, and so we'll be picking it up. So if people drop it off at the Chamber of Commerce, fire departments, we'll get it in the trailer, we'll get it to the people that need it.
Well, appreciate your efforts on this.
It's been an interesting ride.
Yes.
You know, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get Walmart to commit to a trailer. I mean, they're a big company, and thank goodness. I mean,
Well, and with your reputation of theft of Walmart trucks,
once we finally got to the people in the distribution center, I mean, they just rolled over to do stuff for us. I mean, it was absolutely wonderful. They are working hard to make sure that we're covered however we need to have it done. And I didn't think it was going to be possible. But
well, thank you for
it
your
works.
hard work.
It works. And let me see, is there anybody else I need to mention about this? Of course, Lindsley and Julie have been working on this with us.
Lindsley's been doing all that calling.
Oh, really? And she's gone to receive?
She's back in her office working hard again.
Well, tell her that we sent kudos.
I will.
And thank you too.
And, okay, boxes, people. I can't think of anything else we need.
Who do they need to contact if they have boxes or if they want to volunteer?
Me.
Okay. Do you want to send me the contact information, or do you want to state the contact information?
I'll state the contact information. It's 841-7349 is my mobile phone number.
Yeah, please.
841-7349, or email me, don@donconnor.com.
Is that 7349? I've got
Yes.
written down, but not here.
DonConnor.com, all one word.
Yep.
Is it case sensitive?
No. No, it's just me and me. But, and if somebody has a large quantity of stuff that they want to not bring to the fire department because, they've gone and bought a pickup truck load of water or something like that, they can call me. We'll get it. We'll make arrangements to get it. We want to help those folks out. They've got problems. It's just unbelievable the problems they've got to deal with. I mean, they're still in search and rescue mode up there. They hadn't started to worry about cleaning anything up. Okay, I guess we need to go to. Is there anything else we needed to vote on? Was there?
No, but I had something I wanted to.
Go ahead.
I guess I was harp until the end of time about wanting us to do the beauty mark.
Yes. And
And I even gave some money several years ago for the next beauty mark, which never did occur. I think it's about $1,000 now in interest if you want to pay. But it's
Total
$25.
JP has the information on the beauty mark stuff, and unfortunately she's out today, and she's usually good as gold about being here. But how about on next month's meeting we take up the rest of the beauty mark? I think she's got the nominations in and stuff like that, and
Right. Now, this stuff, it used to be, when I first brought it up, I talked with Greg Harton about the times matching some
Right.
of our money, and then they were motivated to do a story. It was a paper,
Right.
but the papers have changed since then, so probably somebody would need to contact him and find out whether it's still feasible.
And news blogs like Ozarks Unbound, and folks like that need to get involved in this one too, so they can publicize it a little bit. Wouldn't hurt. And he can put a sign up at the coffee shop. But, okay. Agenda suggestions for next month's meeting. I do know we have, and JP and several of us have been calling each other, getting together about things that we need to take care of business-wise, and I'm not gonna do that without her here. She's got the list, she's got all the info on how we put it together and what we wanna ask the Council of Neighborhoods to do. And so we want that on the agenda as just kind of a business clearinghouse meeting next month. And I don't believe there's any other pressing things that we want to put on the agenda there, unless something comes up in the middle. Do you have any? Oh, yes. Tell us about that. I've forgotten. Sorry, Julie.
It's okay. Cindy Cope, which I think most of you are familiar with, she's been the Fayetteville and Bloom committee chair for many, many years. And she had found out about a organization, or it's not really a company, it's they're actually University of Harvard students that created a community website. They call it Our Commonplace USA. They started out in Falls Church. They're in, I think, 4 or 5 cities. The reason they started out in Falls Church is one of the students is from Falls Church. They received some funding from Harvard, so their Harvard School of Innovation, or their innovation program, is funding this. They're coming to Fayetteville. They're going to have a couple of their community, they're hiring a couple people that go from community to community to help implement this website. It's going to be fayetteville.ourcommonplace.com, and it's with a neighborhood focus, so that you can just put out an announcement if you lost a dog, or you're having a yard sale, or if there are bigger issues you want to talk about,
or a block party,
or a block party. And it also has a portion of the site where community organizations can have news items, they can have their information fed. So like all the news items and things that go on the city website, they will be fed to this automatically, and other community organizations can do the same thing. And then you can go on there, and it's similar to Facebook in the type of interaction, but it is very focused on neighborhoods, on getting to your neighbors and discussing digitally with your neighbors.
Do they want to have somebody speak with us?
Well, they were going to be here in June, but they've pushed it back till July, so I can have one of their community, or both of their community organizers, come and talk at the July meeting.
Everybody feel good about that?
Sure.
But I can also give a brief presentation, because the site is live.
Okay.
It is up, and you can register. I'm registered.
What's the website again?
It is www.fayetteville.ourcommonplace.com. And I will email it out to everybody too.
Thank you.
And I think it's already got it hasn't been publicized at all, and it's got about 20 people from Fayetteville already signed up. So.
Amazing. Okay. Well, we need to get on that, and then we can have somebody come talk about it
Absolutely.
in a meeting or two from now.
We can do that.
And more than happy to join up with that. I mean, that's neighborhoods. It's neighbors helping neighbors. And back to our food drive, neighbors helping neighbors. We do want you to bring non-perishable goods to the fire stations. Please, please, please. We've got a large truck to fill up and we want to get it filled up. Any other business?
Are we ready for neighborhoods?
Yeah, oh yeah. I guess I should find out what's going on in the neighborhood, shouldn't I? Before I close out. Root School neighborhood, things are pretty status quo. It's wet. It's rained a lot lately. Okay?
We're all wet. The garden tour will be, the Peace Garden tour this Saturday will be going to everyone's neighborhood, I suspect. But anyway, it's May the 28th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it includes World Peace Welcome Prayer in our neighborhood and many private yards in other neighborhoods. The other thing I wanted to mention, we did have the FEMA folk walking through our neighborhood last week, maybe 2 weeks after you, before you see this, if you watch it on government channel. And they were very seriously looking for people to help. So if you've got any storm damage, if you've had any flooding that affected your property in any way, if you think it's caused mold possibly about to happen in your basement, your under crawl space, or roof damage from the wind or something, now's the time while we're on the list as an affected area by disaster.
Yeah, we are in a
Contact
disaster
her.
area.
And
Yes.
Lindsley left the room, but maybe Julie knows. Julie, where, can you tell us the dates and places for meeting with them in the city and in the county?
I don't have that information on me, but I can find out, send it out in an email tomorrow.
Okay,
Would
and
that be helpful?
Yes.
it's probably on the city website maybe already.
It might be. I was out for 10 days, so
Oh.
I've been out of the loop.
Okay, well,
Definitely.
I hope it's already on there, but I can't remember if I saw it there. The other thing is, on the northern periphery of our neighborhood, Old Main Lawn is under siege, according to some people. It'd be dramatic, but the university wants to work on some buildings just west of Old Main. But to get there, instead of using the entry from the old historic entry from Maple Street, they're planning to cut a construction road and keep it there for 2 years from the end of Lafayette Street, the west end of Lafayette Street, all the way up in a sort of winding path, trying to avoid some of the larger trees, past Old Main to the west. That's this way if we were looking at reality in this room. Anyway, the potential for destroying trees that they don't even touch is very great, because these trees have very old roots and they're like a network out across that lawn that's been there for many, many years.
And they're saturated.
And it's really saturated. And any compression of the soil will automatically cause potential damage to those trees and possibly death in a couple of years. So this construction road would be in there for 2 years if we understand their plan. There are other reasons. It's considered sacred ground by people who graduated from the University of Arkansas and lived in this community for a long time. So probably the most sacred part of the campus. It's the oldest land that was the campus. So I really think you ought to consider finding out more about this and expressing your views to whoever you consider appropriate, whether
And
it's
you can contact
university.
Paula Marinoni and she will be more than happy
Share
to
your views.
share all that information with us.
One thing will come before a city committee or two, particularly the street committee may be involved in street department in removing the public parking on a portion of Lafayette Street to allow the dump trucks to pass without hitting cars in there. So this would be will require going to a street committee meeting, I believe, the first week of June. You can check schedules for that. But that will give the city at least a little bit of say in this. Otherwise, it's a state institution, and it operates pretty much free from city control, regardless of the wishes.
They are autonomous.
Autonomous, yes, sir. So that doesn't mean you cannot influence them if your opinion is well stated and
Correct.
offers alternatives. People have talked about going in from Dixon Street, for instance. Far up there is a route that could be used. But the old historic entry, which those of us who attended many years ago used to drive through and even park through as a graduate teaching assistant, in my case, in the 70s, you cannot use it right now because a sorority has donated quite a significant amount of money to build a grand entryway there. That's been delayed already for a while, but they're very much wanting to see it completed. If that were delayed for 2 more years, and they could use that entry, but once they fill that in, that will not be a place you could run construction trucks, and it's already holy ground, but it'll be considered a more expensive piece of holy ground with that new work on it. So there are possible alternatives to be discussed. But
Okay, but they just need to get in touch with Paula Marinoni or several of the efforts.
with city officials related to that part of it,
Yeah.
and with university officials. That's who makes this decision. University board members make the decision finally to approve it, if there's any question about it.
Yeah.
But they've already given it a sort of go-ahead.
Okay.
That's a problem.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Nancy?
Oh, neighborhood?
Yes.
Things are going well in Woodland. We're all just trying to find ways to remove mold from our bodies.
Getting ready to cut the webs off your toes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Huntington, we always seem to have something going on. We just had elections. Pretty much the board stayed the same with the exception of one person, the new secretary. We have a pond issue in our community that it's a hot button of opinions on what to do with it, but we made use of a University of Arkansas representative come down and kind of give us guidance on what we can do in that. That should kind of put to silence maybe some of the arguments, which is good. Newsletters, website, that's been regular. We recently, as of about a week ago, we got not even a week ago, a Facebook page for our community, and like 42 members already on it. So it's going to be a good source of communication for getting word out in the community. We had a community work day about 2 weeks ago, and had about maybe 15 people came out and all contributed to kind of getting our pool and our pavilion up and running and all that. So, and then we're hoping to have our pool open this weekend.
And hopefully your pond will be fixed.
Actually, the gal who came down, she said the pond is beautiful. She says we envy it. I mean, she had really nice things to say about it. But there's, people have different opinions on what needs to get done, what they want to see done on the pond, and so we're always battling those things. But she thought it was pretty good.
You're not looking for 225 horse mercury outboards
I
on
don't
your
think
pond.
so.
Okay.
But it sounds like positive things. I like your Facebook idea and some of those things.
Very good
you're
ideas.
That's great. That's really great. Stan?
Pretty quiet over in Jefferson Walker. There's the sidewalk project along Morningside is completed as far as the federal money goes, which I find amusing because that's where the sidewalk ended all along. And the sidewalk that is supposed to be built across my block is waiting on sales tax money. So, whenever people come in the coffee shop, I say, thanks for paying sales taxes. It'll eventuate in a sidewalk for me. Nobody's been really excited but me, but,
Well, we're glad you're excited, Stan.
at least they know where their money's going.
Well, and we need the sidewalk there.
Yeah.
It would make it more walkable community for you.
I know, we would, and we still need a sidewalk along MLK, 6th Street to Huntsville, or Highway 16, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
15th Street. It's probably coming.
6th
16.
6th Street.
6th Street.
on Sixth Street up there.
15's
Yeah.
gonna be a 4-lane, 4-long.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna do major
There's-
things,
They
dude.
can do that down south, too bad they can't do it on crossover. That's really pretty much the useless road right now if you're trying to get to Springdale.
Yeah. Well, that's getting widened
Yeah.
to Joyce. All right. Anything else? Have we done everything? I
Make
think
a
we
motion,
have.
we adjourn.
I'll
Okay.
say.
Well, let's adjourn.
Let's
All
go.
right.
Adjourn?
Adjourn.
There.
Aye.
Okay.